Hey there! You are either watching or listening to The Climb. I'm John Sarakis, and this is brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. Today, we have one of those fantastic episodes, one of those episodes that you'll save, you'll probably take some notes, you'll replay later. It's our conversation about business development, how you get a client today. And it's with the one and only Chris McGuire. Granted, there's probably 1,000 other Chris McGuires out there, but they all look up to this Chris McGuire. So before we get into that, Dave, why don't you come out here?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. So this was a big topic. I mean, business development. We had ABM, ABS, account based selling, and a lot of those approaches, and a lot of this has to do with how you sold pre-COVID in business development, and then how you sell post-COVID, right? This more virtual environment, but as far as people reaching out to you, I get a ton of emails. What are some of the most interesting ones that you've gotten, people trying to get a hold of you?
I mean, the most interesting one happened lately where, an outsourcing company reached out and claimed they were from the town that I went to college. So I saw that and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And I'd really just, not that we were going to outsource anything, but I did click through. I wanted to find out more about this company because I wanted to know about tech companies back in Morgantown. So looked into it and I was like, all right, that's a fun scam, or that was an interesting hook. So ultimately didn't fall for it, but it did grab my attention and I had to kind of look into it.
So do you think it was just automated, or that person just selected that? Like, where is your hometown, like on your LinkedIn? Like, where would somebody get that information?
Well, it's the town I went to college in. So I have that I went to college at West Virginia University on my LinkedIn profile. So I would imagine that's automated. I would imagine they pulled that and then automatically figured out, where WVU is located at and then just, added it in there.
I get so many per day, man. It's insane, especially on LinkedIn, and just the number. Granted, we've won awards and whatnot, so that it just makes it explosive. I'd say on average, I get 10 good ones, and I say good ones per day, like ones that I will even consider saving. My sales folder of the things I'm cribbing to use if I would ever use them is continually growing. And on LinkedIn, I probably get, it's less now because LinkedIn's made some changes, probably like 3 to 4 good ones per day.
Now, another interesting one I've got was forwarded to me from one of our clients, where somebody basically used the connection that they were following Oyova and used Oyova, saying, if you're using Oyova, then you could use us and it'll be much cheaper. It's another outsourcing message, but they used that connection to try to, wedge a sale in there. And I was like, wow, that is
Smart
impressive.
but shitty. Oh man. But I mean, and here's the thing: tactics only last so long,
right,
before somebody gravitate, or somebody grows onto them, and they're going to gravitate towards something else. I think what I love about this episode the most is just how the authenticity and being genuine in your approach is
100%.
what will win you the game. It's the hair, it's the tortoise and the hare, though, man. It's not easy. It's in there. I think it's 10 to 12 weeks based on some things before you see any real results.
But the way he describes it, he's really developing a relationship with these leads, not necessarily just selling. He's really just establishing value. And I like how he walks us down the entire path of what he does to do that. And so I think a lot of people are going to take some gold nuggets out of this interview.
Gold nuggets. And for you newbies, gold nuggets are a DMG term coined by the one and only Jeff Klein. I like when you say the one and only, and it's a name that there's probably like 200, or more other people.
John Smith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have a Smith on our team too. Like, I mean, if he could flee, and you look up, any other Smiths, and you just disappear into the ether. It's like a fake name.
So I read, and this is completely off topic, but do you know why there's so many Smiths?
Because there were so many blacksmiths?
Because, yes, correct. But during war, even when you conquered areas, you never sent your blacksmiths to war. They stayed back to make more weapons.
They were the survivors.
Yes. So that skill set was always needed. Even when they were conquered, they're like, okay, don't kill the blacksmith.
Ah, got it. That's probably why there's so few Siracuses. We just went to war and just decimated all of our people. My wife's maiden name is actually, it's German. It's Schmidt, which is Smith, right? I've had friends too, like I think it's Middle Eastern Haddad or whatever. That's actually Smith as well. I mean, it's a very, very common name in like every different culture. Yeah,
It was very valuable for many thousands of years.
interesting tidbit. I love it. And what else is very valuable are the tips you're going to get today on the Digital Mastermind's interview with Chris McGuire about business development and how to get a client today. And at the end, if you could go ahead and like, share this episode with anybody you think would be fitting in the digital tech or agency space, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much and enjoy. Bye now. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. So I would like to start with your climb. How did you get here?
Well, I was a psychology communications minor at Loyola University of Chicago, and I was trying to decide whether I wanted to go the psychology path or the marketing communications path. And so I did 2 internships, one where I counseled high-risk teenagers in Chicago, and then another where I worked at a promotion agency. And while my impact as an intern probably was much higher with the high-risk teenagers, I think working at the promotion agency really kind of helped me define a career path. And from there, they hired me actually after I graduated. I worked there for probably 5 years after graduation. And then
Which one hired you? I'm sorry.
The marketing agency.
Okay.
And then I went to Draft, which is now part of FCB. I was then recruited by Leo Burnett. The division that I was working at, Leo Burnett, got bought out. And so I moved with them, and I was leading the Visa account where I was able to grow the account like 5x, really by just creating relationships and understanding their challenges and servicing them really well. And then I just kind of continued that path. I got hired by another promotion agency and really just focused on business development. And I didn't really manage the accounts anymore. I was more just trying to generate leads and then close deals and then move on. I did really well at that, and they asked me to start a sister agency. So I led a digital agency for about 3 years. And then they decided to bring everything back together, and it got weird. So then I left, and I ended up at McGuffin. And so I've been at McGuffin for just over 3 years. I head up their business development efforts. You and I have worked on some projects together, but my primary goal is to bring in new clients as well as help grow clients. And over the last year and a half through COVID, my game has had to change. And so I think that's probably some of the topics we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and before we get into that stuff, when I first met you, I just want to say, like, you are like the consummate like biz dev pro. Like the way that you show up, the things that you say. So growing accounts 5x, 10x, or whatever those numbers are, I'm not surprised at all.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, and getting into that, like, was business development just something you kind of like, just like, I'm just naturally good at this and went toward it? Did somebody push you in that direction? Because I don't think enough people understand what it entails to be good at business development.
Yeah, it was something I actually did not want to do at all. I really wanted to be more of like an account director, group account director, really just diving into clients and getting into it. And my boss at the time, guy Mike Buchkowski, really pushed me into getting into sales. And I think he saw my ability to connect with people and understand them and try to help move them in a direction where we can find mutual benefits. And he really taught me a lot and just kind of coached me along the way. We would go out to San Francisco for a week at a time every month. So it was like 25% in San Francisco. My wife used to joke that I had a separate life out there because I kind of did. I would like be taking out clients, and she would come out every once in a while, and I'd be like, okay, well, we're going to go out with Natalie and her husband, and then tomorrow we're going to do this, and we're going to go wine tasting with this other couple. And she's like, what is going on? Very true story. But I think that's really what business development is about, is creating those relationships that are kind of sticky and where people trust you. And it, I always think of sales. I think a lot of people think of sales as like a little bit smarmy. like, the used car dealership thing where you're trying to sell something more than what it is. But I actually think it's much better to develop a relationship that you're delivering on things that you actually know you can deliver on. Your offerings meet what you're able to deliver on.
Yeah, and like, so what was your process like? Let's say pre-COVID, and in developing a relationship with someone, like how would you go about it?
I mean, most of it is just pressing palms. I mean, I would go to 3 to 4 networking events a week. And so I'm involved with a number of different organizations that would have events, the Executives Club, the Chamber of Commerce, the AMA, just trying to get in front of, good prospects or people that could introduce me to prospects. And so really anything that would be an opportunity for me to meet somebody, I was like, sure, I'm in. And I'd show up. And, the thing about that, I think a lot of people have hesitancy in doing that, just because like, you got to kind of gear up for it. I had gotten into a place where I was so used to doing it. It was just kind of natural. And rarely would I walk into a room that I didn't know somebody, which makes it a lot more comfortable when you're like, okay, I'm going to this event. Am I going to stand in the corner by myself? And like, how do you engage? So, when you kind of have a little confidence, you can walk in and at least know somebody or, have some kind of correlation to somebody. It makes it a lot easier.
That's a good point. I don't think a lot of people realize that the more that you network, the easier it gets, just based on the associations that you're going to make.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I was on the circuit, and like there are people that were on the circuit with me. So like we would, we'd share events. You're like, are you going to this thing? Are you going to that thing? And so then you automatically know, well, I know Julia is going to be there, or Doug, or, whatever. And it just makes it easier.
Right on. All right. So let's say you meet somebody. Where do you go from there?
Well, I think first of all, you're just trying to understand what they do and try to align what your offerings are to them, or understand how they can get you in front of the right people. And frankly, there are times that you just can't. There are just some people who work for companies that are just not in line with what your company offers, and that's okay. My boss now, the president, Chris, always used to say, like, he knew a guy that would just literally do like the 2-second intro, like, is it a fit? Is it not a fit? And like, yeah, we're not really going to work together. So bye. Like, and that's not really my approach.
His name like Rick Bridgeburner or something?
Yeah, pretty much. But you don't really want to spend a lot of time trying to, make a connection that's just not going to happen. So I think that's the idea of that tactic, not necessarily the execution. But then I think networking is also not being afraid to ask for the connection. Like, there are people that work at big organizations that aren't necessarily in marketing, which is kind of my target. But they know somebody in marketing. And if you ask them, like, I don't know if there's anyone that that might be looking for an agency, just ask the question. Most of the time they're going to say no. And as part of sales, you got to get used to that. Like, that's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
But it is, the only way to get like a strong connection. Because frankly, in new business, it's much easier to win when you're coming in with a referral or some kind of outside recommendation than it is to just win on your laurels. We're not FCB. We're not Leo Burnett. We're McGuffin Creative Group, and we do great work. And I feel really confident about the work that we do and that we can deliver it for our clients. But not everybody knows who we are. And so, having some kind of outside referral is really important to us.
So what would you say is the percentage of cold? Is cold one of those things where you're like always looking for somebody and you're like, all right, I'll go in cold? Or is it just like, okay, all right, I'm happy to just, go in cold? Does that question make sense, by the way, after I said cold? Like,
not really. Yeah. What do you mean by cold?
All right. So if you want to approach a business, are you first looking for anybody that that may have a connection to somebody that business? Or are you just saying, all right, I'm a gunslinger, I'm going to go in cold?
No, I'm always looking for some kind of connection, whether it's someone that I know, a mutual contact. LinkedIn is like a primary tool for me to see, do we have any like network connections, first, second connections that are the same? And then how can I approach them in a way that makes it feel like a warm lead versus just going in straight cold?
What
So
is
you try to even take the cold ones and try to find a way to warm them up a little bit. You know, like, hey, you and Susie are friends. I know Susie.
Is that your move where you're like trying to just, essentially just create any type of association that you can? Because that is a comfort level, right? Just on the psychological side. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, they like Chris. I might like Chris. It's just something as fundamental as that.
Yeah. Even just like if you're, when you're at a networking event, like name tags are very important. Any event that doesn't have a name tag, that doesn't have your name and company and title is, they're missing the mark on that. But like even just like walking around the room and looking at those name tags and seeing what companies they are, and then when you approach them, like think about the people that you know at that company, or hey, do you know John? He's in this department. Just to try to like break the ice a little bit and get them to try to get some connection going. And then the conversation can go from there, but just trying to find some kind of icebreaker.
Do you have your own name tag that you bring to your events?
I do not.
Okay.
No, that I'm not professional like that.
Well, I don't know if that's professional, but I'll see people and I'm like I don't know. To me, it seems very realtor,
Right. Yeah, no, I don't have like nothing like that. Now there are some tools where like you can do a digital business card now where you can like swap things without having to like transmit a card.
I've seen that. Yeah. Well, I've seen one that is a digital like business card you just set on somebody's phone. I just saw that this weekend at our DMG event.
Yeah.
So, how about, do you have isn't there a certain side you put your name tag? Because when you lean in with your, do you make sure you do that every time?
It's always here.
Yeah. This one? Okay.
Over your heart. Over your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's right. Because when you're shaking hands, you want them to see like this side of you. It's the broader side from perspective.
Yep, exactly. So
I never just consistently do that though. I'm always like halfway through the meeting, I'm like seeing everybody else has it on side, and then I have to.
Like that noob. Look at that. Noob.
You're that one guy that has it on the wrong side. Well, that's another way to stand out in a crowd.
Yeah. Or sometimes you go no name tags, right? And then you see the person like awkwardly searching for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, so my primary was doing networking events and things like that, and then trying to do prospecting, emails, things like that. And I never found that incredibly successful. Just prospecting cold like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that was at the time I didn't have a lot of good tools to help me be more specific, or even understanding, do they even get the email? Like, when I got an email saying like, hey, buzz off, like I'd be like, yes, somebody got my email and they responded. That's like a win, right? I mean, that's not the ultimate goal, but prospecting like that is hard.
Yeah.
So
did you have a certain count that you would go for, or is it just like, these are companies that I want to work with?
Well, so yeah, there would be specific companies that I would prospect based on company size and their segment and where they focused, and then I would generate lists, and then I would have like a series of emails that I would send to them, trying to get them to respond.
Gotcha. Like a workflow, whether it's manual or automatic. You had a series. Okay, so a lot of that is like and I'm sure some of this is going to blend over. Like, how do you find a client today based on the current landscape? Granted, things are getting better, but
yeah, I mean it was a tough struggle when COVID came down, and like my networking meetings went from 3 to 4 a week to 0. It was hard, and then everything started to move digitally, where you would be on Zoom calls for different conferences that were where they'd have speakers and things like that. But there was never any networking component. I mean, you could try to do stuff in the chat and stuff like that, but it was never really, I never really felt like I made a connection with anybody. And so I really had to try to pivot. So I started looking at, trying to find or develop content. And then I worked with our marketing person here at McGuffin, Danielle, to, create a platform called The Teller, because most of our prospects are in financial services. And so the teller being like a banking teller. And we created content that was unique to ourselves. And then we also took, we call it Outside Insights, where we would take an article from one of the major publications and then just provide our take on it. And then we created lists and trying to send those out to our prospective clients. and things like that, which was cool. But then also deliverability, like it's still kind of like sending things out into the ether without really having a lot of intel as to what's going on. And so I, continuing to evolve that process, I started looking at account-based selling methodologies, which the leadership team and I kind of came up with. And that is really about taking content and then applying it specifically to your prospects. So instead of, here are my 100 contacts that I'm going to reach out to in a week, it's like narrowing it really down to like 10, and not just 10, sending them 3 emails in a week, but sending these 10 people like a very custom email every week for like a quarter, and trying to like get information to them that's relevant to what their specific job and role is, that's valuable. So it's like really about adding value. And the idea is give, ask. So you're giving them information that's highly targeted, specific to what we know about what's going on at their organization. There's a lot of like, social stalking going on in this, like looking at their Twitter accounts, looking at their LinkedIn, seeing what they're posting about to understand what's interesting to them, and then curating content that is going to fit their needs. But yeah, it's really about giving them as much value as possible to show that you're in the space, you're knowledgeable, that you can add value, and then asking them for a meeting.
And so this spurs a ton of questions. One is, how much content are you creating? Are you creating that, or is it the team member that you mentioned?
Well, it would be team members at
Okay.
LinkedIn. And so there's a little bit of that. And then there's also just me. I have Google Alerts set up with, my prospect clients, where I'll get an email every day that'll outline the headlines that our prospects are in the news. And like for, in banking, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on. So I've been collecting and then making my own list of like what mergers and acquisitions are going on, so that I can then provide those people with content for how I can create value. And we did an interview with CMOs and marketing leaders at different organizations that have experienced or gone through a merger or an acquisition, in order to develop best practices on how to communicate internally as well as externally. And so there's that part where we're creating our own content. And then there's just me out there looking at, the financial brand and ad age and trying to find content that's relevant to them. And then taking that content, adding my spin to it, and then sending it to them that's in a way that's relevant to their role.
You ever sent something like, "Hey, I heard you guys got acquired or merged," and somebody responds, "I didn't know that. I think I'm going to lose my job."
Not that, but for some of them, whether being acquired, I've sent articles like from there's an article from the Harvard Business Review. It's a few years old, but it was like how to navigate being acquired, and it gives it like tips for how to like behave. Like some people, their natural reaction is to like hide in the corner. Other people want to like get out in front, but it has like kind of like an approach to like how to show that you're adding value and that you're kind of got a seat at the table and participating in a way that'll set you up for success. So like that's an article that I would send to somebody that might be concerned about their job.
Yeah, that's gold, man.
Yeah.
That's smart. Have you been acquired, and did you find that article? Like it doesn't seem like a natural connection where you're like, okay, this is a strong piece.
No, I was just trying to figure out, like, there's got to be a guide to how to help these people.
Yeah.
And then I was like, Harvard Business Review, well, that's a good article.
If you don't run out of your credits, right? Don't you get like 2 credits a month? Yeah.
But you can share that content.
So I like that. So it's anything that would be helpful to the person, and you've limited it to 10 rather than 100, or some people start with like thousands, and you really, and these are warm relationships you've started, or are some of these cold?
Some of them are cold. Yeah. I'm just starting to send content to them cold based on what I can find on their LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever.
I love the approach because it allows you to put your spin on it. And if I got one of those and I agreed with your spin, like I would, instantly want to gravitate towards you more because I'm like, hey, this guy thinks like me. This is gonna be interesting.
And
my open rates are outstanding.
Yeah, like what's your percentage?
80.
Wow, that is really high. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna like congratulate you on like a 30 or something.
No. When on my like one-to-one emails, I get like an 80% open rate. And now I don't know if like they're probably swearing when they open the email, but I haven't been
pictures on these people or something. They're like worried. They got to get to it. So what's the duration of you sending this stuff out before you ask for business or a connection?
10 to 12 weeks.
10 to 12 weeks. So by this time. So I imagine though that at some point, are they even asking how they can help you ahead of time?
Well, I can't say I've been doing it all that long,
Okay.
but I haven't gotten so much of that. I mean, probably my biggest success story in this has been connecting with the CMO of M&T Bank. When he was announced, it's got to be over a year ago now. I mean, nothing happens fast, right? Like I'm trying to connect with the CMO of, a major regional bank in the United States. And so he had just accepted the position and it was in the news. And so my first outreach to him was a LinkedIn connection. And, it was very simple. Like, I like to connect with marketing leaders. Congratulations on your new role. There are great things going on at M&T Bank. I'd love to connect with you. And he accepted. Mm-hmm. My next message to him through LinkedIn was an interview that we did with the CMO of Bank of the West. And in that interview, he talked about how he identified the new positioning for the bank in the first 9 days that he started as the CMO. And it was really about sustainability and social justice and doing well for the world and for the people. And it was a really strong positioning statement. They're one of our clients, and it's really kind of a unique positioning in the marketplace. And so I sent it to Francesco and I said, hey, this is how the CMO of Bank of the West was able to identify his positioning, and he did so in the first 9 days. And Francesco responded with, thanks for the advice. I've got 3 days left. And I was like, you got this. It'll be fine. And then from there, like, seriously, that kind of set me up for success, because now I've provided him with, some good content, right, that was relevant to his specific role at that point in time, right? And then I just continued to send things about M&T Bank, about other things in the marketplace, just over time. And then I started my ABS approach, which was where I got more systematic about it. And I just sent him content. He actually would reply back like, oh, thanks, this is cool. I'll send it off to my team. And then when I finally asked for the ask, he said, sure, I'd love to learn more about MacGuffin. I don't know if we're really looking for an agency right now, but I'd like to hear what you have to do or have to offer. And it worked.
Right on.
Now, at what point does the conversation move from LinkedIn to email?
Whenever it feels right. I mean, so when I started doing the ABS thing, I really was focused on doing the emails. But, I would comment on his social posts. I would like them. I would comment on them just so he recognized that I was still there and paying attention. So it is about, there's every communication channel is on the table. It's not like a one-shot pony thing. Like you want to be where they're at, just like in any marketing campaign. You want to be where your customers are in order to connect with them in the place that they're open to connecting.
It has to be organic. You have to have a reason. It can't be deliberate, like it's just pure intention. Yeah. So the main goal is, developing the relationship, not, instantly going in for the sale.
And actually, we interviewed him for our M&A article that I referenced earlier. And he was awesome. I mean, he was a very dynamic, like friendly person. But like my ask was, hey, we're doing an article on mergers and acquisitions. Would you be interested in participating? And he was like, sure. And so I had our copywriter, we did an interview with him via Zoom. And then it was after that I asked him for capabilities. So
Oh, wow.
it was like, you have to be patient.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a rush. They say always be closing. And it's really hard for me to hold back here, buddy, hold back, because I want to be authentic and true in what we're trying to do, which is we're trying to add value to our prospects for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's, as a salesperson, you're always trying to be authentic in what you do and what you're offering. But at the end of the day, I do have a need in the future, which is, to feed my family. So, from there, I was able to ask him for the capabilities. He gave me a half hour. I burned through a capabilities deck in a half an hour, and he was like really impressed with our work because, again, McGuffin does great work. And he referred me to the person that manages his head of agency. So I'm still in the process of working that relationship, but we're emailing back and forth and we're communicating. And to me, that's a win from a cold. I went from a LinkedIn request to I'm scheduling my second real new business meeting, third meeting.
Yeah. Congratulations. No. And I love it. And I mean, granted, you started this because of COVID, everything you were working on. So it's not like you were behind the times. It's essentially like, this is what's needed now, another organic approach.
Exactly.
So with let's say that you have the 10, you're reaching out to all these people, and granted, there's multiple points where I'm sure you're, excluding people. Like, what are those? Of course, like LinkedIn, they don't accept your connection. Is there anything else that somebody could look for?
Well, so in this process, we implemented Sharp Spring, which gives
sponsor of the Digital Mastermind. Thank you, Chris.
That was not, but I'll take a cut of whatever it is. So that's cool. But no, and that has been a really helpful tool in trying to understand, are they visiting my media? Are they clicking on the links? Are they interested in the content? But at some point, you got to cut bait and be like, okay, this person's never going to respond. And really that is when I ask, I've been dedicating time every week to sending you content that's specific to you. And if you are just literally throwing in the trash, bye. I'm on to the next. But my goal is not 100%. My goal is not to get all 10 of those people to accept a meeting. My goal is 1.
God. And so, and if somebody was to, and you just have 10 working at any time, they're organically pulling themselves out, or you're excluding them, and you just keep
I mean, if they tell me to buzz off, fine. Yeah. Or sometimes there's a job change that happens, or whatever happens, and self-selection or whatever. But you're just focusing on that 10, and then you go find another 10, that fit your core profile. But you're not guessing as to whether or not they might be a good client. The people that I'm selecting are generally VP of marketing, CMOs, director of marketing, even, that work on products and services that we have extensive experience supporting, and I know that we could help.
So how much of your day is spent on the ABS side of things?
Well, it was a lot more at the beginning, because at the beginning I had no content, but now I kind of have a library that I'm pulling from. So I probably spend 6 to 8 hours a week, looking at this stuff. I think that's probably reasonable. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little less. Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to send them this week?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, man, if you don't have the library.
Yeah, the library helps. So now I've got, templates, and then it's how does this content apply to their role or their company, and what's the hook to pull it in, which is much easier than actually finding what the content is. But then you see trends. I see, I can see who's clicking on stuff, so I can see in general what types of content are interesting to my prospects. Digital transformation in banking right now is the topic. Right. And there's so many different aspects of it. How is it going to impact branch networks? How is it going to impact the interaction between a banker and and a customer. Because when COVID went down, banks generally, they did not have good infrastructure to support their customers from a digital standpoint. Now, there are companies like Ally Bank, and that's all they do. But a lot of these banks didn't. And like, one of our clients, they didn't have a way for a small business customer to open up a new account digitally. They can only do it in branches. So how do you do that when your branches are closed?
Right.
Problem, right? But now they've built all this infrastructure and they have all of these digital tools, but the branches are opening up. So do you abandon the branches or do you abandon the technology? But a lot of it is like, how do you use those digital tools to enhance that relationship with the banker? Because banking is a relationship business. And so it's really important that they kind of maintain that. But it's a lot, these digital tools can make it more seamless and submitting your paperwork and your taxes and everything. Like, think of it like when you do a mortgage application, there's like all these different things you have to deliver, like your pay stubs and your tax forms and your whatever, there's just like a lot of information that has to be uploaded or sent. So if you have an infrastructure that makes it better, it creates an opportunity for a banker to have a conversation with their customer. And then it also, now the banker has more analytics to identify, like, well, they're now looking at, home equity lines, or they're looking at credit cards, or, now you can get information to give the bankers, an opportunity to create a conversation with that customer.
So, and I'm happy you laid it all out like that, because you put a ton of thought into this.
Oh yeah.
So do you have like a written plan, or was it more of just educating yourself and then tasking things to your team? Like, what does that look like, or what did that look like?
I mean, do I have a written plan? No. I mean, I have like a structure for how I approach it,
right?
But each customer is different. And, like I said, like I have tools that I've set up to help me find that information. So it's not like I'm out trying to find the article.
Yeah.
But like Google sends me information every day. So thanks, Googs. But I can go through and look at what types of information are trending right now. Because, journalists are spending just as much time, probably more than I am, trying to find what stories people want to read.
Oh,
and
so
I'm kind of leveraging their work, and I give them full credit. Like, I'm not saying like, hey, I came up with this great idea. No.
Another article
like,
by Chris McGuire.
Hey, right. No. I mean, there are articles that I'm writing, but most of it is leveraging other people's content and then offering my spin on it, or my take, or applying, what I know about their organization to whatever's said in that content.
So we just had our event on October 4th to October 6th, right? And there's a lot of agencies in there that are niche. And and one thing I notice is it makes it easier in the sale because you have the stories and the case studies saying, hey, we've done this before. But it sounds like you take that even a step further, where you're literally just hugging them, from both sides, saying, all right, now we're this full education source for you. You don't have to even go to our website. We're going to, stalk you, find you, and provide it to you. Right.
Right.
But how many profiles, let's say just in like finance, right, or banking, however you want to phrase that, are you speaking to, or based on your 10, or even throughout your marketing? Is it like 1 or 2, or is it 3 or 4? What does that look like?
I would say it's probably 3 or 4. I mean, there's a lot of different product categories that we're looking at. And so if I can understand, like, if they're focused on a specific, like commercial lending versus consumer checking, like they're very different products. And while, a bank offers, a commodity, how you talk to a business owner is very different than how you would talk to a consumer. And so the approaches and the tactics for the marketing in those product lines are different. And so if I can speak to how they're dealing with their product and, the shifts and things that are changing within that product line, because like commercial bankers, like small business, generally are the people that go to the branches more than anybody else, because mostly they're going there to do transactions, they're depositing money, they're withdrawing,
Mhm.
versus like a consumer. Like most of our stuff is either direct deposit or we're doing it on our phone or whatever. But most of those deposits, especially pre-COVID, had to be done in the branch. And so like understanding nuances like that and what challenges COVID brought to those situations helps in talking about that. But then there's consumers, that maybe opening a checking account wasn't an ability that you could do online before. So there's a lot of research, not just in understanding what the marketplace is, but like what's going on at that specific bank, and like looking at their website and understanding what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely stalking. I like it. It's the good kind of stalking. If there's such a thing. So where did you educate yourself on ABS? Was it just loose blogs? Can you recommend books? Like, what does that look like?
There was a webinar that I think was put on by Winmo, which is a lead source.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some really good tools and recommendations. I didn't like dive into all the tools. Like they had a lot of like social listening tools and different different metrics that you could gain to try to get that information. And we're a small agency. We can't throw hundreds of $1,000s at like tools to try to get insights on people. So I had to kind of pick and choose, what was going to work for us based on the investments we were able to make. And but they did provide some really good insights into, just select 10 and, deliver value, then ask. And so it's not like I came up with this, but I think I applied my own, spin on it because I don't have all the tools that they did. And also whenever you're talking to a different market, I mean, I can't say that every business development person that works for an agency is able to do my exact same thing and be successful, because I mean, you have a digital agency, which we're a brand marketing and digital agency. So our services are different than yours. So the people you're going to be talking to are going to be different, which means that the challenges that they are facing are going to be different. And the things that you're trying to sell them are going to be slightly different. So your approach is in general going to be it's going to have to be applied.
Let's be frank, they're not Chris McGuire, right?
What's that?
They're not Chris McGuire, all right?
Well, that too.
Yeah. No, but what I love about what you did, though, and this is something that Dave and I talk about all the time, there are tons of companies and people that will hear like all this fancy, shiny stuff, and they're like, the solution's just in buying the tool rather than the practice. And then next thing you know, they've spent either the hundreds of thousands of dollars, or it could even be less. But then they just think the tool is going to do all the work. Right. Whereas you said, all right, I'm going to take SharpSpring, I'm going to take Google, I'm going to take LinkedIn, and then I'm going to put together my process and actually do the fundamentals and get the results from that.
Right. Yeah. And, I'm still evolving it. I can't say that I it's like any sales tactic. Like you're always kind of like making it your own. You're always kind of tweaking and trying to figure out. So like, even just like what my subject lines are, what my calls to action are, like, how do I engage? Like I try to think like, how do I get people to engage? Like, how do I ask a question? How do I get them, to actually want to respond? With Danielle and I talk about like, how do I get them to tell me to go F off? Like, I mean, that would be okay. Like, I'm okay with
I can give you tips on that. Trust me.
I bet you could. But no, I mean, honestly, like I was one thing that people don't understand about salespeople is like, if you literally just tell them to go away, like, thank you. Like,
I know some that will not listen to that, dude. Like,
what's that?
I know some that I wish they would just listen to that, but I'm with you. Yeah, I know the response. I know the path forward. Cool. On to the next one. I think that's pro level.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Like I'd rather spend my efforts on somebody who is still considering me as a potential supplier or solution than trying to just fight to get, it's like I'm fighting for a no at some point, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm not just looking for a meeting. I'm also looking for a no. Like, no, we're good. I've got my agency set up. I've got everything we need. We're happy. I don't have time to bring on another vendor because that's another thing that's like a lot of work sometimes. Like, fine, great, next.
I'm so nervous of responding to any kind of email because I feel like it's coming from an automated system. And the second I respond, I get flagged as, "Ooh, this is a real email. Let's keep hitting them." Or I'm getting the like, "Hey, I'm interested in buying your home at da 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 da."
Yeah, I
Reply,
think
"Yes,
that
I'm interested."
I understand that, like, from a, some of these automated emails, right?
Yeah.
But like my emails are literally like, they look like they're coming from my Gmail. Like there's no like header bar or anything like that. Like they're pretty like down, and they're authentic, right?
Right.
And I
Even the
actually,
automated emails these days are like I share the really good ones with our team to kind of keep in so that they're informed. But this one automated one used my college town name in it and a connection that they knew I was connected to. And I mean, you could tell they just scanned my LinkedIn profile and it automatically was like, "Hey, I've got a team in Morgantown, West Virginia. And I think, and I see that you were working with blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "What?" Like I started responding and I went, "Wait a second." And then checked the email, and the email address was a Gmail. And I'm like, "All right, nobody professionally would send me an email from a Gmail account." So
yeah, that's funny. There's a new campaign out by Cheetah Digital. I think I hope I'm not butchering their name, but and it stars Newman from Seinfeld, and it is hilarious. And so he's like playing this digital marketer, and he's got this automation tool, and he's like, da da da. He's like, "Oh, I'm buying new tennis shoes," and then he's like, "Oh, I got an email asking me if I want to join a gym. How do they know that I would want to join a gym?" And then he gets an email from like a realtor saying, "Hey, do you want to, if you join a gym, do you want to move to a house that's closer to your gym?" He's like, "I've been cookied." And it's like the funniest campaign. It's awesome. And so like Danielle and I joke, because like now we're like looking at these metrics, like trying to like take the information that we have and apply it to these people. I'm like, I'm Newman. I am Newman. But if you haven't seen the campaign, it's really awesome. I give them thumbs up on that one.
So yours are automated too then? You based on the quarter out, or are you sending yours like individual one-offs?
Mine are more individual. Yeah, but I mean we do cookie them. So I do see, when they come to our websites,
Yep.
I see, when they open the email, when they click through, if they come back to the website, so I can kind of see their whole journey.
Yeah.
And on SharpSpring you can
Lifetime
see
of the lead.
Yeah, the lifetime of the lead. So I'm always kind of checking that too when I'm putting together my content, like what emails are they opening? What content have they seen? What can I provide them with content that kind of builds on that idea that they were interested. Like you take these little threads and run with them as much as you can. But it's not automated. Like it's just me trying to read into whatever it is that I can find.
Little tea leaves, getting the bones out of the bag. Like, oh, okay, this is what this means.
Exactly.
What other are there any other like standout, pieces of advice that you got along your career that that had an impact that you could share with others?
I think one of the things that I always bring up from a sales perspective is that every decision is personal. So whether it's a decision about an agency or a decision on a concept, one of the things we talk about internally is like, no one really gets fired for hiring IBM to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But, you can get fired from hiring a no-name company, right?
Yep.
Because you're actually taking responsibility for that. You're vetting them. You're saying, this is the right group. They know what they're doing. They're going to be able to solve our problems. And so when you think about that, it really kind of puts you in their shoes. And like, so if every decision is personal, like how do I take out as much risk in that decision as possible? Like, how do I help secure them in feeling confident about the decision they're making with choosing MacGuffin or whatever it is that we're trying to get them to do? And when you think about that in any aspect, like selling isn't just about closing the deal. Selling is selling yourself. You're selling a concept. You're selling an idea. They're selling everything. And so if you think about that as just a general rule, whenever you're trying to convince somebody to do something, think of it as like every decision is personal. Like, what is it in this person's mind? Like, what are the things that are going through their mind as they're assessing which way they're going to go?
Yeah, I love that. Because when I'm looking at a deal and we're working with somebody, I think it is. I don't have it perfected, but there's a mix of different things that some people need. Some people need to feel more comfortable in the scenario. Some people just need to look really good. Some people just need to understand that it's super trusting. So you're going to have like it's going to be 2 years before they're going to work with you. And some people even told me that, like, hey, before we even take on anybody, it's going to take 2 years, and it's not even about necessity. It's just making sure that you're not a
Right.
bad person to some respects. So I love that though. Like, and I don't think enough people look at that. Like, how can you remove as much risk from it? And I think salespeople and companies, they'll take it personal when somebody's not working with them, rather than flipping it and looking at the personal decision, as you mentioned, and
Yeah.
really taking their perspective.
Yeah. And so like even just when I'm writing proposals, it's like giving a background to the firm, helping them understand what we do, what our specialties are, pulling out like the things that they're looking for that we know we're really good at. And then outlining the process, like in a detailed way, like what can they expect as to how you're going to get to the solution, how you're going to work through the problem, and how you're going to deliver the work. Again, that it takes away a lot of like this question, like, well, what's it going to be like if I hire MacGuffin?
Right.
Including references or quotes from clients that are happy. There are just lots of things that you can affirm the decision in a way that, think about whenever you make a decision, like if you're going to buy a car, like you're going to look at reviews of that car, you're going to look at, pricing, you're going to evaluate what's the right price, what's the right dealership, how close is the dealership to me? Are they going to be able to service me? All those things go into like a personal decision. How's it going to impact me financially, for my daily life? Is it going to be reliable? Is it going to break down on me? Those are all the things that you consider when buying a car. And the same thing is just like, if I'm going to hire an agency, like what are the things that are going to make that decision for me secure and safe?
Yeah, I think it's a smart approach. And then realizing this is a super high involvement purchase.
Right.
I think it's a lot of things that people forget. So if you try to move too fast, you're going to scare the deal away. Just take it at a specific pace. Try to control as much as you can and manage it. But yeah, just let the person know where they're at the entire time, but also be receptive to their feelings. I love that.
Yeah, and over communicate. But it is about a personal relationship, because trust is such an important part in the agency relationship that, while I may not be working on the job after it's sold, I represent the types of people that work at MacGuffin. And so I'm trying to create an experience that would, everything's going to be delivered on time. You don't deliver the SOW late. You make sure that they got it. Every little communication. You ask questions early. You don't ask them the day before it's due, right? Like, so that you're not showing that you're like rushing through it. Like you're trying to show that the experience of working with MacGuffin is the same as what they're experienced through the sales process.
Yep. Setting the expectation up front. That's great advice.
Yeah.
What are some like don'ts though that you maybe have seen in your career or that you're seeing now? You're like, I don't understand why people are doing that.
What are the don'ts? I think we talked about like,
I think
if you're going in blind,
yeah.
If you're going in blind and you're just sending information about yourself only, I think you're going to miss the mark. I think that was a big problem with my prospecting before, was that it was like, hey, we know financial services. We do all this great work. We do all these things with these types of companies. You should work with us, which is a pretty fair pitch, right? Like, but it doesn't connect with them in a way that is meaningful, because there are probably 100 different agencies that could say the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think you have to demonstrate more than just say it.
And I'd say that, that goes along the lines of like spamming. Like some people are still spamming. I can't tell you how many emails we get to our info@email box, like per day.
Yeah.
I'd say it's I don't even know how many it is. It's a ton. And number one, they're like the worst messages. It's as if you found the slow kindergarten class and then asked them to write your email, marketing campaign. It's just, it's brutal.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I don't know anybody that knows that that's effective, but I see that as something that's continually going on.
I have I get emails every day about these automation LinkedIn services that will connect and bring me leads just magically through sending people. And I think there's probably like 8,000 of these companies in China, because I get one like every day. and I just don't think that they're going to do it the way that I approach it. It's not going to be as personal. It's not going to be as targeted. And, even like hiring a lead service in general, they're getting paid based on getting a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And that meeting, I've used them before. That meeting is often come out of lots of pestering. And so the person that's finally accepting the meeting is just like, if I take this meeting, will you go away? I'm serious. And then they're like, well, I took this meeting because this person wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the pitch that I want to give. Like, you can't just outsource some of this stuff. It's, sales is really about being authentic and being true to yourself and being true to them.
I had a service, and I agree, running on LinkedIn one time, and this guy, very, very well connected, he says, "Hey, I'm willing to accept your connection request, but I'd really appreciate if you didn't use LinkedIn as a spamming tool like you are." I was like, "Oh," I mean, it was like the most touching, like, "Hey, that's not cool." And I was like, all right, so yeah, now it's a lot of one-off requests that I send to people. It wasn't a blanket approach to build my network like I did back in the day.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I would love to connect with a marketing director or a CMO at a bank every day. Like I just like an easy LinkedIn, like, hey, let's connect. It's just not that easy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to like get them to say yes. And sometimes you get lucky, and again, in sales, you got to get used to hearing the word.
But I think it's just two types, right? And I think they can both be equally successful. You have the people that are all about the quality and the craft, right? Like you're going about it. And then you have the people that are just the quantity. It's like the spray and pray method. And, they sneak onto a tarmac and take a picture of themselves with a Gulf Stream in the background, They've never even touched the plane.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are probably different types of sales that are numbers games like that. If you're selling a service that everybody can use, you can do that more. But when you're offering a service that people can get a lot of different places, you really have to kind of craft a message and build a niche and create a reputation in order to connect with people, and then hopefully be included in the consideration to close the deal.
I love it. All right. So is there anything that we haven't talked about today that the world should know?
Anything that we haven't talked about today that we should? One thing that I'm kind of iffy on right now is phone calls, cold calls. One, people aren't necessarily in their office anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Two, what is their phone number? Three, everyone is in meetings 8 to 9 hours a day, like straight. So are they available to pick up the phone? And does a voicemail, is that a good method? So it's one of those things that I just debate myself as to whether or not it's a good approach.
From a cold approach, or
from a cold approach.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a friend of mine who's in sales. He does IT sales, and he found a method that worked where he got cell phone numbers from people that he hadn't talked to in like 10, 15 years, and just like called them on their cell phone.
So this is like, how close of a relationship did he have like 10 or 15 years ago?
I mean, he was probably like an AE,
okay.
He probably knew them a little bit, but
yeah. Hey, you worked on the Kmart account, bro.
Remember that?
No longer in business, but
I see you're now here, right? Because where they work. And he said he got some meetings out of it. But that's still a little bit warmer than like getting a cell phone number of a prospect and just calling them on their cell phone. Like I kind of feel like that's an intrusion on their personal
It
privacy.
could be, but if it's, and I think it just depends on that relationship. It's like an old buddy from college you're rekindling with. Because I tell like our sales team, essentially, if you need to draw up sales, just call every contact that's in your phone and just have a conversation with them. Right. And if it leads over to, hey, there's a project or something, that's great. And the amount of contacts people have in their phones, I mean, there's thousands. And then if it's somebody you haven't talked to in a couple of years, they're like, oh, hey, man, like, how have you been? And then,
Yeah.
yeah, and you can maybe help them with something else in their life. It's not just a one-way transaction.
Yeah. Another way that I've been successful at connecting with people is helping people when they're in transition. I through the AMA, I have a lot of connections with recruiters, and because we did an event that was focused on like resume building and everything, and so I have like a good list of like 15 to 20 recruiters, and so whenever I see someone got laid off or they left a job or they're in transition, I say, hey, if you're looking for a new role, here's a list of recruiters. I'm happy to make any introductions for you, and because if you help them land their job, hopefully maybe they might hire you when you get there.
That's smart, man. Yeah, that's definitely a takeaway, a golden nugget for somebody to walk away with. A list of recruiters. Huh.
Yeah.
Do you also have like the unemployment office on there too?
No. I don't go that far. But no,
Hard money lenders.
Inviting people to events too, like even virtual events that you think would be relevant to them is another type of content that you can get in front of people. We do our MacGuffin mornings once a quarter, where we have a speaker come in to talk about something that would help our clients, prospects, partners with any part of their career, whether it's their daily job or like just personal branding or different topics that I think are that could be helpful to them. And then we, whether it's a panel or a interview or just a straight presentation, we invite as many people as we can to come to this virtual event. But again, it's showing that you're participating in the marketing arena. You're part of the conversation, hopefully seen as a thought leader, and providing, again, value to those prospects.
Do you have like a list of like, it sounds like you have some triggers that you would send somebody, articles on. Do you have like a list of like content ideas? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I've been creating a library, and then so I have a library of articles which are just like in an Excel with links, and it's ugly and but it has like some topics put together, and then I also have emails that I've kind of templates that I start with when I send the content, and then I can cultivate that content however I need to. But yeah, it's like just trying to always build that library so that you're not just, when it comes that day of the week that you're going to be trying to send those emails out, you're not just like, what am I going to send? It's like, instead, it's like, which one am I going to send? Which is a lot easier. And like anything, like, it's kind of like when you start going to networking events and you don't know anyone in the room, and then you start going, and then you start seeing familiar faces over and over again. It's the same kind of thing with doing this content. Like the beginning is a kind of a dark place. But as you get going and understand and get the metrics and understand what people are interested in, it does help kind of guide the path for where you're going to go.
Right on. I love it, man. Awesome. Anything else you think we should know? You're a wealth of information, and
I think that's all I got today.
Awesome, dude.
We can do it again tomorrow.
Okay.
Let's see what I can come up with then.
All right, this is your space now to plug anything that you want.
Well, McGuffin Creative Group, we focus on working with healthcare and financial services organizations. We do branding, digital, whether it's website, social. We also do still print. Print is still a real thing. So we'll do sales, collateral, materials, presentations. And, one of the things that we offer is that we come to the table with a wealth of information and knowledge about the category. So you don't have to train us on what a HELOC is or tell us, what the different service lines are for a healthcare organization. We come, so you don't have to train us. We're ready to go, and we can help you immediately.
Awesome, man. And one thing I want to say that we've worked with you on some projects, some of the nicest people. You guys do incredible work. And there's something in your handbook. I'll mess it up that says like we don't treat anybody like shit or something like that. What is that statement?
We don't screw anybody.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's cool. And I think a lot of companies might believe that, but you guys have that in writing, and it's essentially everybody is indoctrinated with that thought. So that's just a beautiful thing to me.
Yeah. So
awesome, man.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's just fun.
Being on. Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.